few years back when I was younger, like many children of the 90s, I worshipped Game Informer. Every month I would wait and wait and wait, and the second that magazine arrived, I would tear through that shit like a hot knife through butter. So as I'm sure you can assume, I highly valued the review scores that Game Informer handed out. It was like my main source of critique from ages 6 to 15. The hottest issues of Game Informer, though, the ones that I sat by the mailbox for, were the ones that held reviews for the shit that I was really hyped for. One of those games, a game I spent a year tip-tappity typing away on the message boards with, was 2010's Aliens vs. Predator, developed by Rebellion. Why was I hyped for this game, you may ask? Well, I really wish I could travel back in time and ask myself that same question, because I have no fucking clue, honestly. I hadn't seen any of the Alien movies at that point, and I fell asleep during Predator when I was 8, so I couldn't really tell you. Anyway, the March 2010 issue of Game Informer was one that I basically went comatose for, because it held the review for the much lauded by me, Aliens vs. Predator. When it arrived, I snatched that bitch up and flipbooked through it until I got to the review section, and then I stopped. I just went page by page. Heavy Rain? No. Bioshock 2? No. Oh, shit! It's AVP time! Oh. God damn it. This was a traumatizing moment for me. People did not like AVP 2010 when it hit shelves 8 years ago. What those people did like was the original AVP, a very similar game released 11 years prior, created by the same company. I'm here today to break down the comparative and contrasting points between these two games, to try to analyze exactly what went wrong from 1999 to 2010. Because something certainly did.
Context.
I'm gonna do the obvious thing and break this video into 3 main sections. We're gonna go over the Colonial Marines portion of these games first, then we're gonna move on to Alien and finish off with Predator. But before we jump into that, a brief history lesson. The AVP games are a series of first-person shooters in which you play as either an alien, a predator, or a Colonial Marine. Each character comes with their own campaign and offers a different playstyle, featuring unique mechanics that clearly define each race. The Colonial Marines play like your standard FPS, and the Alien is a faster, stealthier, and much more vertical experience. The Predator kinda differs from game to game, but we'll touch on that later. The mainstay AVP series includes AVP 1999, AVP 2, and AVP 2010. The second game in the series was handed off to Monolith, but 2 out of these 3 games, the 2 we'll be talking about today, were both developed by Rebellion, the team behind Rogue Trooper, the Sniper Elite series, and Rogue Oh my god, they did this game? Holy fuck, that is the key! Everything makes sense now! It's a total goat fuck! Back to the topic at hand, the original AVP released to wild critical acclaim in 1999, with one reviewer stating that in its most engaging moments, it was the greatest game he had ever played. High praise indeed, especially for a product that falls under the same trademark as the shit sandwich that was AVP Requiem, except for this scene, which was great. It was great. In summary, the situation is that AVP 1999 released to high scores and critical acclaim, and AVP 2010 released to flaccid ratings and disparaging reviews. Now that that's all cleared up, let's go ahead and get into both of the Colonial Marines campaigns.
Colonial Marines.
So, like I mentioned before, both of the Colonial Marines campaigns are about as close to a classic shooter as you can get. Both include you clinging to your dwindling ammo supply as you book it through dingy, dimly lit sci-fi environments, mowing down both Alien and Predator alike. Luckily, the darkness isn't a problem, as the main Marine character in AVP Classic comes with comedically deep pockets filled with 1,000 million flares, and you'll be popping those bitches like cheap champagne corks at a strip joint. To be fair though, you can only have 4 active flares out at once, so it is still limited enough to keep the tension afloat. Now, in case you haven't noticed yet, every character in AVP 1999 moves like a fucking Wayland-Yutani NASCAR, wheeling around at 600 miles an hour, to the point where I found myself rocketing through the air across the level half the time. So it only makes sense that you would be able to pop out multiple flares at once as the Marine. It allows you to create a wider net of light in these dark environments to make space for the insanely high overall speed of everything in the game. AVP 2010 goes about integrating this torch mechanic in a different way, to suit the more modern mechanics of that game. Now, this next thing is something you're going to be noticing across the whole video, with the entirety of AVP 2010. Rebellion did bring back the torch mechanic from the original game, but they pushed it through a dubious process that I like to call realisticifying. Now, just what exactly is realisticifying, you may ask? Doom 3 realistified the Doom series. The new God of War realistified. The original Saints Row as compared to Saints Row 4 and Get Out of Hell motherfucking realistified. I don't want to spoil all the stuff that's been modernized in AVP 2010 just yet. We'll get to some of that with the other campaigns. But I think a lot of 2010's critiques can be attributed to this process of realistification. So the flares and the movement speed, those are the two big differences between the Marine campaigns thus far. Those may sound like little things, but really, they're mechanics that are ingrained into every moment of the 99 campaign. It's all about moving fast enough to avoid the aliens while maintaining enough light via flares or the occasional well-lit room to actually kill the fucking things. AVP 2010 is more cut and dry, and therefore automatically a bit less engaging. Most of the Marine campaign is spent doing your normal 2007 to 2012 kind of shooter shit, and while it is competently executed, it leaves something to be desired when compared to the frenetic, light and dark-based intensity of AVP Classic. The flares are way less necessary this time around, due to the generally flatter lighting with less areas relying on pitch black darkness. That being said though, I don't think it was necessarily a terrible thing that 2010 was realistified, at least less so in the Marine campaign. It gives 2010 a much more creeping atmosphere. The cramped hallways and dusty planet sides offer up no hope for rescue and make you feel truly isolated. One of the first things I thought while replaying AVP 2010's Marine campaign for this video was, holy shit, this is exactly what Colonial Marines was trying to be. And it's only 1/3 of a fucking game! While that may speak more to the all-encompassing incompetence of Colonial Marines production more so than the quality of AVP 2010, I do think it is significant that the reboot made me feel more genuine dread than Colonial Marines ever could. Sure, it's not the super perfect alien hunting simulator you've been dreaming of since you were 13, but guys, I think it's time to stop holding out hope for that. We've done it like 15 times. Another nagging problem with 2010's Marine campaign, and all the campaigns in general, is the strict linearity of the whole affair. You can go this way, and only this way, and that is it. If you want to go anywhere else, you can suck a big fat bag of alien heads. I can appreciate a linear game, I love them, but when the hardcore linearity of a reboot is actually more restrictive than the original, well, you probably fucked something up. 99 sees the player running around larger levels with multiple branching paths, and while it is still linear, it's also up to the player to figure out where their next objective is, with the aid of high-ranking officers rendered in stunning full-motion video! I was gonna make a joke about how it really does just look like the devs sitting at a table in front of a green screen. Look! That man doesn't even wait for the take to end! You couldn't do another take? But it's so fucking endearing that I can't find it in my heart to point out the flaws like I just did.
All doors have been secured. Stay on maximum alert. This thing must be stopped now!
The story of 99's Marine campaign is told through these FMV cutscenes, and while it's just about the most basic "get the fuck out of there, Rook" kind of premise, it gets the job done. Contrastingly, 2010 tries to give the Marines a bit more character, which is appreciated, but doesn't really work out. There's really only one character you come to know, a high-ranking female Marine that I like to call Colonel You rescue Colonel from a facehugger after she's captured about halfway through the campaign, and then you take it out, and you leave, and that's it. There's some shit with the alien homeworld and Wayland. I don't care. Lance Henriksen is actually in there, but his Skype session delivery sadly does not do the story any of the favors that it so desperately requires. At least in 99, you can get like a little chuckle from the super intense Marine acting and the weird shit that goes down, like the fucking Xenoborgs. Okay, we need to stop for a second and talk about the Xenoborgs. In the later 99 levels, you'll face off against Wayland Yutani's newest concoction, the Xenoborgs, an unholy union of xenomorph and machine, which is so incomprehensibly stupid that it actually does a full 540-degree spin all the way back around to being fucking genius. These things were dangerous enough as is. They're literally the perfect predator. So what? You're gonna weld lasers to their arms? What is going to happen next? Good God, this game is turning into a Wayland Yutani circus tent. 99 has buckets of entertaining nonsense to work with, whereas 2010 is just... it's just bland. There's nothing there. The same can pretty much be said about all the stories across AVP 2010, but we'll dive into the alien and predator plot details a bit later. Now that the Marines have been covered, let's go ahead and jump into the breakdown of everyone's favorite dickhead.
Alien.
You know, sometimes I forget just how much the Xenomorph's head looks like a penis. But this main menu brings that into sharp relief. It's just slowly rotating, giving you a great look at all those rippling ridges. Let's just start at the beginning. AVP 99's alien campaign begins with the alien moves so fucking fast in this game that I feel like it gave me whiplash, like I was in a fucking car accident. I know the Colonial Marines move fast, but this is some next level shit. This is like being strapped to that fucking SpongeBob roller coaster. The alien campaign in 99 begins with you booking it through a squishy phallic wind tunnel with your only directive being kill the fuck out of things. There are humans here, kill them. Now, where AVP Classic started its alien campaign with the simple declaration of, "You're an alien, fuck it!" AVP 2010 adds a little more depth. a little more pathos to your xenomorph. I'm not sure who the fuck was asking for that, but this isn't like Rent with Aliens or anything, so it's fine. A little bit of context is fine. You play as Xenomorph number 6, the alien smart enough to evade capture at an early age by bursting out of a mouth instead of a chest, which really scares the living fucking daylights out of these scientists. Man, is a baby alien this much of a threat? Is this really like a pounding on the glass situation? I don't know, there's just something comical about these two grown-ass men screaming their heads off because of this 6-inch teeth phallus. So number 6 grows up and escapes, and vengeance and yada yada yada, you get the picture. Both stories are the bare minimum of what you can call a story, with no arc or characterization to be spoken of, and that's totally fine. I don't need my xenomorph to learn the true meaning of Christmas by the end, so, as I'm sure you can tell by my aimless ramblings, story is not a priority in the Alien campaigns. What is a priority is mindless, brutal murder, which is always fun, but before we dig into the gameplay of both Xenomorph campaigns, I want to take a second to hit on the level design of both games, because it's especially important to the Alien parts of this series. AVP Classic's take plays like a highlights reel of everybody's favorite Alien set pieces. You have an ancient colony that feels like something out of the derelict ship, which includes a very confusing alien statue, like who the fuck built that? You have a ship that feels similar to the Nostromo, crammed with civilians. There's a level that looks like the prison colony from Alien 3, etc, etc. While these constant nods to the franchise could seem gimmicky in a more lazily designed game, the homage is held up by genuinely deep, creatively constructed, and challenging levels. These alien maps aren't as mind-bogglingly intricate as something like Dishonored 2's Clockwork Mansion, but good lord, it feels great to explore the surprising amount of alternate paths that these levels hold. Vents litter every nook and cranny and serve as a hugely important means of traversal through the environment, which really serves to make you feel like a genuine, creepy-crawly alien fuck. Sometimes shit does start to feel like a Scooby-Doo episode with how often these textures repeat, but those moments are few and far between. Also, I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but I just have to say, Jesus H. Christ, this game is fucking difficult. I had to play the entire Alien campaign on training mode, because hear me out, I tried to play that first level 50 fucking times, and that is not an exaggeration. AVP 1999 makes Dark Souls look like some scratch and sniff baby cakes bullshit, and that's about all I have to say on the matter. Back to the matter at hand, the level design of AVP 99, for the most part, is excellent. Conversely, the levels in 2010 are interesting, is what I will say. The level design in AVP 2010 strikes a pitch-perfect balance between inspired and lazy, to the point where I don't know which one it is. When discussing the level design of any individual campaign of AVP 2010, you have to discuss the levels of every other campaign, because they're all the same. Every campaign in the 2010 game includes the same 5 levels, remixed in a different order with slightly different options for each playable race. In concept, I think that could genuinely be badass as fuck, but conceptualization and execution are two very different things. If they wanted a game that gave each race unique, critically different pathways through the same levels, then they should have actually done that. At the moment though, all 3 campaigns are nothing more than 3 slightly different ways to traverse the same space using either action, stealth, or action stealth. Sure, you do get different weapons and abilities, but along with the fact that some of these would-be useful abilities are clunky as balls, using these new tactics in the same spaces over and over again takes some of the thrill out of it, especially when there's only a handful of differences like an interactable vent here and a large jumpable gap there. To be fair, there are several engaging moments of discovery and rediscovery buried in AVP 2010, but for the most part, that multi-perspective level design stands as a missed opportunity. Now that we've gotten that level design discussion out the way, what exactly is there to do in the Alien campaigns? Well, it comes down to 2 things in both instances: climbing and killing. These 2 actions are core to the Xenomorph's gameplay in both titles, but like pretty much everything else in these games, they're executed fairly differently from one another. Freeform climbing is the mechanic out of the 2 that remained the closest to its 1999 counterpart, and that's a good thing, because climbing around in both of these games is fun as fuck. I've heard people say that climbing in 2010 is more disorienting than in 1999, but I'm gonna have to disagree. The only thing that puts a damper on climbing in the reboot is the fact that the game takes control away from you every once in a while, requiring a button press to enter a vent, which can really kill the flow of movement at times. They probably should have stuck with 99's method of just punching the shit out of vents so you can climb through them manually. Another big mechanical addition added from AVP Classic to 2010 that has a similar problem with stopping the gameplay cold are the fucking hilariously brutal kill animations. Yeah, nobody can tell me those aren't awesome. Well, nobody can tell me those don't look awesome, but in the context of gameplay, they end up being kind of an issue. Despite the fact that I love how dedicated to H.R. Geiger's work these animations feel, with the butt fucking and rape attacks, these things can get so excessive that you will actually get shot to death before they're done. They can't be canceled mid-attack by the player, so once you go for one of these things, you gotta commit. Luckily, committing to these attacks does come with floppy neck tubes, which lessens the blow. Either way, these things break up the flow and leave the player exposed in a way that feels too clunky for either of these creatures. Now, on the total opposite end of the murder spectrum, you have AVP 99, in which you just fucking bolt up to people and jazz hands them to death as they crumble to pieces like Lego people. I'm sure this was some high-end shit for the time, but the sound effects are just way too close to Minecraft for me to take this shit seriously anymore. I've been talking your ear off for what feels like several hours now, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up with some quick coverage of the Predator parts of these titles.
Predator.
This final part of the discussion is going to be interesting, because I believe the Predator campaigns show off both the best and worst of these games' content. In my opinion, the Predator portions of AVP 99 are the worst of the bunch, but only because the other two feel so unique compared to one another. The Predator, on the other hand, doesn't have a single truly unique mechanic to set it apart from the other two characters besides its cloaking device, and that thing is finicky at best. Sometimes it feels like it just chooses not to cloak you. There's also no story to be spoken of, like zilch. I have never played a game that literally has no plot, but I guess we're here. I guess this is the one. There's no framing device, no dialogue or characters. It's just you are the Predator, go do Predator things, and finish the level. While I do appreciate that this is like a game in its purest form, you gotta give me something, man. A character name, a goal, a fucking, what is so hard about that? Be careful what you wish for, though, because AVP 2010's Predator campaign does have a story, and it doesn't fare much better because of it. The story revolves around a Predator investigating a hunting party gone mysteriously wrong. And while it's a serviceable attempt to put you in the shoes of a badass, battle-worn Predator, it never becomes anything more than just that, serviceable. When you reach the conclusion of the Predator story, you finally get to square off against the hellish hybrid you've been hunting down the whole campaign. The Predalien. I guess there was no way to combine those two names without it sounding stupid. I honestly don't know why I expected anything else. But really though, is there a way, Alienator? Predomorph? Xenodate? No, there's actually no way to make that character sound cool. Predalien was the least stupid choice. Just name it something new for fuck's sake! Look, I love Hemi bullshit. I am documented as one of the 17 people in the Western Hemisphere that enjoys Resident Evil 6. I think the Predalien could be a really cool monster, but it's just never had an opportunity to shine. When it's all said and done, you just end up with two dudes in shitty rubber suits tackling each other in the fucking dead of night, or you get a derivative-ass boss battle on some fucking lava rocks. Now, despite the fact that the campaign ends on a rocky note, the gameplay is easily the height of AVP 2010's Predator campaign, and it might be the best part of the game in general. Despite the fact that our Predator seems to be made of paper mache, sneaking up on dudes and ripping their spines out of their bodies as this hulking monstrosity has never felt more badass. Same goes for the movement of the Predator. Sometimes the lock-on and jump mechanic doesn't do exactly what you want, but it's pretty reliable for the most part, besides the fucking neck-snapping head bobble that happens every time you land. This fool's goddamn head bobbles so much that I felt like I was at a Lamb of God show, watching my 6-foot roundhouse kicks and shit. The Predator's combat arsenal in both games is pretty solid across the board. The spear and the spear gun are both expectedly satisfying as fuck, if a little game-breaking due to their one-shot kills. It's a little odd how you receive these weapons. Like in AVP Classic, you come to each level strapped, like you would expect a Predator to. But in 2010, you inherit 3/4 of your weapons by plucking them off the corpses of shitty Predators. Man, is the Predator we see in the first movie like an outlier in terms of competence? Even then, it just took one Austrian beefcake to take that thing down. Maybe these guys aren't as cunning as we're giving them credit for, because they keep fucking dying. I'm beginning to get really curious about the Predators who like build the ships and come up with the technology, because these guys seem way too fucking barbaric for that shit. Like, guys, you have invisible spacefaring vessels, but you're still hunting with sticks? Is this how these dudes get their kicks? With these sticks? Do they button up and go back to an office job at 7 a.m. the next day? Like, what is their culture? What do they fucking do? There's gotta be, like, scientist predators that these guys make fun of while they drink their predator natty ice. I have no clue what I was talking about before this. The weapons, we were on the weapons. Okay, well, the main weapons you'll be using for the large majority of both Predator campaigns are your trusty arm-mounted blades. They function as you'd think they would in AVP Classic. You tap the left mouse to lazily flail the Predator's hand around, cutting to ribbons anyone that happens to stand in the way. In 2010, it's a little more complicated than that, and here's where my stupid made-up word comes back in. The hand-to-hand combat has been heavily realisticified in the reboot. I know we're all here for the physical monster-on-monster battle of Alien versus Predator, but it feels really weird to see these two crazed beasts throw down like they're in the fucking octagon together. And like every UFC match I've ever watched, it ends in graceless wriggling and disappointment. Glad I at least didn't pay $2,000 fucking dollars to watch this bullshit. The fighting is not good in AVP 2010. There's no room for improvisation or creativity in the combat due to the game's insistence on telling you exactly what to press to win immediately. I'm sure you can turn off these prompts somewhere in a menu, but it doesn't change the fact that the hand-to-hand battles are rigid in a way that just isn't fun. Sure, the kill animations are awesome, but there aren't enough to hold the experience up and keep it interesting, especially when the raw melee attack kills feel so stilted by comparison. Stick this one in the bad realisticification bin, boys. The only physical attacks that feel good are the alien tail whips, especially on corpses. A lot of fun to use on corpses. Before we close out with a conclusion, I do want to mention that the stealth gameplay of the Predator in 2010 is genuinely a good time. While it does get repetitive due to a relatively small arsenal, it makes the player feel appropriately empowered while playing as this beast. It led to some truly heart-pounding moments of intense badassery. This shit pinballs back and forth between meaningful, engaging stealth and Predator's punch-a-punch, and I gotta say, I vastly prefer the former.
In conclusion,
playing through both of these games for this video was a very enlightening experience. First and foremost, because I did not know Rebellion made Rogue Warrior, guys. I don't know how the fuck I did. AVP 1999 was a pretty great experience, one that holds up remarkably well for a game that'll be turning 20 next year. God damn, this game is old. If you're looking for an insane, adrenaline-fueled ride in which xenomorphs get rockets strapped to their hands, you can't go wrong picking up AVP Classic on Steam for $5. AVP 2010 is a weird game. It's not the brightest bulb in the shed in the bulb shelf, but I would be lying if I said that I didn't have a soft spot for this lovable little murder fest. It has its faults, which I have meticulously detailed for you over the last 7 years you've been here, but despite those failings, I do truly believe that it's worth a play if any of the footage you've seen here has interested you. The classic tagline is, whoever wins, we lose, but in this case, whoever you choose, you win. Ha ha!